Yes, I certainly think the planting prospects are excellent, especially for the Dakotas, where you had such a high amount of prevent plant in 2011. I think those two states combined could see an increase in 5 million acres in planting. There's a lot of sloughs and wet areas that haven't been planted for 3 years that are finally going to be planted. I do agree with the private forecasts that are calling for corn acres to jump up to 94 to 95 million acres. In early spring, the old rule, you plant it in dust and your bends will bust, I think is a true comment most years. And if we have favorable, warmer, drier conditions into the spring, that we will see a large increase in corn acres. You're going to have good planting conditions for spring wheat, and hopefully we'll see. Last year we had, I think nationwide, we had 10 million acres of prevent plant between what happened in North Dakota, South Dakota, Missouri, Ohio, and Indiana. Historically, we have about 4 million acres this year. With the conditions the way they are, I would not be surprised to see prevent plant significantly less than 4 million acres. So we could end up with more acres of wheat, more acres of corn, significantly more acres of corn, and even a slight uptick possibly in soybeans.
Cleese says that all those extra acres in corn could result in a big boost to ending stocks, and with good yields across the country, the large corn crop could set up for a drop in price, especially if the export demand continues to fall and the use of ethanol evens out.
We end up rebounding with 94 million acres of corn and end up coming in with a yield of a trendline yield of say 160, 161 bushels per acre. We could easily bump the projected ending stocks of corn to over 2 billion bushels by a year from now, and that would probably take December corn futures back, December 12 futures back below $5 a bushel, which would take it below a lot of farmers' cost of production. So 2012 is a very dangerous year for a lot of farmers if they don't manage their margins, because land rents are up, input expenses are up about 8%. Most of the farm records that I look at show that farmers do need about $5 a bushel cash price to them to break even. And if we have a large crop of corn, and you indicated slowdown in exports, potential slowdown in ethanol, yeah, we're setting up for what could be some real negative margins for corn producers if they're not careful by the fall of 2012.
Cleese says he feels fairly confident that such a scenario could happen. He says where he is, Minnesota, it's been dry and with good planting weather, but then dry and then hot, the market could be very volatile.
Probably 60 or 70% probability. I do think, if we're going to walk a fine line this spring, we have warm, dry conditions. I grew up in southwestern Minnesota. My family farms there. We probably have the driest conditions that I've seen in 30 years. I live on a small farm just west of the Twin Cities, planted some alfalfa last August and not had any moisture on it since then. And you'd like to get in the crop, planted in April and early May and planted in dry conditions. It's very nice for getting good population extended. But then we better get timely rains because there is nothing in the tank underneath. And so because of that, I think that we have the opportunity to have some real market volatility from mid-April into early June. If the crop, if it does stay dry and turns hot in July and August, then my forecast for $4.80 or $5 corn could easily be wrong by a couple of dollars. So you're likely to be lower by next fall, but you might have some rock and roll markets in between.
The bean numbers didn't change much from the South American perspective. Cleese says that USDA has a good track record in figuring numbers, and they don't move as fast or make as big of changes in data that the private firms do.
Yeah, well, they didn't change it as much as the trader expected. If you look at where the numbers are versus a month ago, they took the Argentine corn crop down by 4 million metric tons. They took the bean crop in Argentina down by 1 million metric tons. They took the soybean crop in Brazil down by 3.5 million metric tons. So, again, they do things incrementally. They don't move as radically or as fast as private people change the numbers, so we'll just have to see what happens as we look at these same numbers again in March.
He adds for now that the trade has paid plenty of attention to the corn crop, and the bean crop is entering its critical time period in South America. But more and more of the trade will keep that eye to what's going on in the United States as farmers here prepare for spring planting.
Crop, I think a lot of the corn news is bad news has been factored in. Now we're going to begin looking at what is the news out of the U.S. The soybean, the weather is very critical in the month of August in the U.S. for soybeans, very critical in the month of February for Brazil and Argentina. And so that you're still going to see some trade attention on weather and crop development for all the way until the middle of March for soybeans in South America. But more and more of the attention will be focused on, corn planting conditions. Are we getting timely rains in the western corn belt? What's going on as we see the corn planters now rolling down the Rio Grande Valley as they begin moving north into Mississippi and Oklahoma. And so we're kind of evolving from 100% of our attention being focused on South America to probably 70% of our attention being focused on South America. And by the time you get to the end of March, it'll be flip-flopped. Most of the attention will be shifted to the U.S.